thank you all for joining us. As I said, I'm Kristen Marcel. I'm the director of the Climigration Network, and I'm so excited to bring the work of Lauren Waters and Rebecca Jim here today, and so grateful to the Learning and Programming and Events work group who has been helping to design today's conversation and will be helping us actually support the conversation. Just really grateful to especially Arti and Farhana. I encourage everyone to introduce themselves if they haven't yet in the chat box and to say hello and where you're calling in from today. If you are not familiar with the Climigration Network, if this is your first experience at a network event, just a little bit about who we are. We're a national network that brings together people with lived and learned expertise to advance transformative community-led approaches to climate displacement and relocation in the United States. Our members and partners are Indigenous leaders, community leaders, practitioners, policymakers, researchers, storytellers, artists, and many, many more. And we're all working towards a shared vision, a world where communities, cultures, and ecosystems are safe from climate risk. Rebecca Jim, who you'll hear more from today, is a member of our Network Council and a member of our Next Step cohort. The Next Step cohort is a peer learning and participatory grant-making program that's directly resourcing community-led responses to climate displacement. She was a founding member of that group and a co-designer of that space. We are consistently inspired by Rebecca's work as the Tar Creek Keeper and as an executive director of Local Environmental Action Demanded, or LEAD agency in Miami, Oklahoma. And we're very excited for the opportunity to highlight and share some of her amazing work and story with all of you. We look forward to more opportunities like this one to amplify great community-led work being done by Next Step cohort members. And with that, I will hand it off to Arti to facilitate introductions to Rebecca and Lauren. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you again to both Lauren and Rebecca for joining us today. We're so pleased to have you. I guess I'd like to start it off by inviting you both to tell us a little bit more about yourselves. And I think, Lauren, we'll start with you. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself, your background? And we're especially interested to hear, what inspired you to create this film, and how did you approach telling that story?
sió na God, Lauren Waters, Dawado. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Lauren Waters. I'm a Cherokee Nation and Kiowa tribal citizen. I currently live in Tulsa, Oklahoma on the Muskogee Creek Nation Reservation. And yeah, just really excited to be here today.
Incredible work.
Okay, we got people on mute. So yeah, so I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, which is about 2 hours from Tulsa, and small town. Didn't really know that I was going to be a filmmaker when I was growing up, but I think that my journey has kind of led me to this place through environmental storytelling. And I was introduced to filmmaking through a really great professor that I had at the University of Oklahoma, and her name is Dr. Laurel Smith. And I was producing just short documentaries on people like Rebecca, tribal members who are working with their tribe or in the environmental field to create a better future for their communities. And Laurel had introduced me to Rebecca in 2021, and where Rebecca lives is about an hour or so northeast of where I live in Tulsa. So Oklahoma is just a really interesting place where, even though it is kind of far, everything's still really close. We drive a lot. Our communities are really connected. And as Cherokee people, we share a lot of history and culture and values. And so whenever I met Rebecca, it felt like an instant connection. And she was really gentle and also just a powerhouse. And I went up to Miami and was able to take a toxic tour where she toured us around the Tar Creek Superfund site and learned more about everything that she was doing. And I was really inspired by this vision that Rebecca had for the future of Miami, the future of this community. If Tar Creek was clean, what would this community look like? And I think as a person that is young, grew up in Oklahoma and had no idea that Tar Creek existed. There was just a lot of things in Oklahoma history that we weren't taught growing up. I was just feeling really discouraged. And I think Rebecca's attitude and drive really helped me to create something that was inspiring for other people. And so whenever we decided that we wanted to make a film, I just really wanted to get to know Rebecca as a person and why she was doing this work. And I think that documentary film can be very extractive in its essence, where documentary filmmakers come in and they want to tell the story quickly and they, turn it around and then they leave and they never come back. And that for me is just not how I want to operate. I really, have a strong connection with the stories that I want to tell. And Rebecca and I spent a lot of time, even like I would come over after she would get back from the office and we would just have, late nights talking about just random stuff. And those were the moments that really developed into the story of the film. And I think in particular, when you watch it, she talks about this connection to homelands that as Cherokee people, we were forcibly removed on the Trail of Tears from North Carolina to northeastern Oklahoma. And not just us, it's like a lot of different tribes are shoved into this little space in northeastern Oklahoma. And then we think about the extractive processes that have gone down there. And now, all these tribal people are forced to live in a place that's toxic. And there's this false narrative of, Superfund sites are empty, or even, maybe why don't you just sell? Why don't you just move? And it's just not that easy for us. And I think that Rebecca's work and in this film really talks about how it's important for us to develop a connection to the place that we're at and be able to learn the stories of where we are. It's just as important as learning about our origin stories and where we come from in order to develop a love and a care for this place. And then beyond northeastern Oklahoma, one of our goals is to spread the message of no more tar creeks. Like it's been a really tough journey for people there. There's 1/3 of the Indian children there were lead poisoned in the 90s, and I'm sure not much has changed since then. And so there's a big message warning sign here that we should be very wary of welcoming in new extractive processes anywhere, because it can really lead to taking our culture away from us. And I think that with this film, I really wanted to showcase what we could have in this place. So for example, you'll see basket weaving and being able to forage for those materials like honeysuckle and black walnuts. Also, there was a couple that I had come in and we went to a creek that is clean and not toxic. And we just had a day at the creek where we filmed them interacting and, following out this love story. My family also came and they're in the film as well. And then one of my friends, Sierra, brought her baby to the creek, and it was the baby's first time going to water. And for Cherokee people, culturally, going to water is a really important thing for us, where we go to water before our ceremonies and we go to water whenever we have a loss in our family. Like these are things that I believe shouldn't be taken away from us. So yeah, the film, I think, hopefully can be a tool for Rebecca and her work, and also for the community to have a piece where they can visualize and feel what it could be. And so, yeah, and beyond the film, we're screening it all over the country. I was just telling them there's just a lot of great film festivals and small community organizations where Rebecca and I are coming out, or I'm coming out and teaching storytelling workshops as well, and just trying to inspire the youth to tell their own stories, whatever that is. Doesn't have to be environmental or whatever. I think that, being Indigenous and being able to be the person that's telling the story is what makes it so important, because it's more authentic and accurate, and it represents us in a light that we have our own agency in our storytelling, which is really important. And then I also work in the film industry in Oklahoma with shows like Reservation Dogs, and there's a new show called The Sensitive Kind that we're filming now with the same creator, and then Killers of the Flower Moon. So I've had the privilege of being in these spaces, learning from creatives who are taking this approach to include Indigenous voices at every level of the production, in front and behind the camera, and then incorporating that into my work and making sure that I'm including as many Indigenous voices behind the camera. So we had a large Cherokee team. My editor and cinematographer were Cherokee. Several other people that are in the film were as well. And then if they weren't Cherokee, they were Native. And I just am really grateful to have the opportunity to be able to tell Rebecca's story. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up there, and happy to answer any questions, and would love to hear from Rebecca too, and what she thought and how this whole process was for her.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And I think that what you said about the sense of place and the rootedness that you wanted to communicate, I think it comes through really strongly. And I'm excited for everyone to get to see the film. Maggie, would you like to do questions later when we come back to the discussion part of this meeting?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm open if people want to do it differently. But
or maybe let's go to Rebecca. And Rebecca, welcome. Thank you for being here. We'd love to hear a little bit more about you, your work as Stark Creek Keeper, your work with LEAD, and also if you can talk a little bit about how this film connects to your broader work and what you hope to see come out of it.
Well, thank you. And Lauren, thank you so much for doing this work and doing this film. And thank you to the network to allow us to show it with you and share it with you. And I do believe after you see it, you'll know that we're looking at this place in a different way and hoping for a future that we don't have yet, and hoping for communities around the country, maybe around the world, to protect where they are. And I am sure that knowing more will help them make decisions that will protect the future. For us, this film was really a journey, and it was a journey that I don't believe Lauren and I knew what would happen with it. We just started walking. I think we did a lot of walking, and along those ways, we walked along Tar Creek, we walked along the Superfund side, and we walked, and in it is really a beautiful place. There are the trees and bushes and plants and vines that I want to have there. But as we've learned through the years, we've discovered that not a single blackberry, not a single wild grape or a wild onion should be consumed from there. And as we go, we wonder, when will that change? Well, it changes with us, and it changes with us demanding difference. And I think what we were able to do with this film was the first time it was screened here in Oklahoma was with the EPA officials who have the power to do something different. And with the city officials, where this creek cuts the town into. This community was built between a river and a creek, and they did that because water, to be near it and to have it be part of your life. And so for the last 44 years, they cannot be part of that creek. And And that's basically robbery. They have had something taken from them, and not only taken from them, but poisoning them. And through the years, some of the color has changed, and when the creek runs through our town, it doesn't look as bad. And as we were walking, it had been years since I had seen a fish in Tar Creek. And there was Lauren, and there was the fish. And it was a red-eared sunfish, which are absolutely beautiful. But dead. And I have it seared in my brain of wanting it. I just wanted to do a little heart pump on him. Come on, I'm back to life. He looked so pretty, and as if something had happened traumatic. And as it was, he's in a poison creek and couldn't make it. And so one day we hope there will be fish. And so for years and years, I've worked with young people and older people with the hope of when that creek is good again, planning for fish tournaments along the creek. And I found the ticket that we sold for the first fish tournament that we held probably, I would say 30 years ago. Yeah. So we still haven't had that fish tournament, but I'm going to keep looking for fish. And I'm hoping that you will see the beauty of what Lauren has created and see how where we are connects us to our past and also links us into the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Maggie, over to you.
All right, thank you both so much for sharing. Would we like to turn to the film now and create some space for folks to watch? I'm going to. Thanks so much. Hand it over to you for Hannah.
Thanks, Maggie. Rebecca and Lauren, this was such a privilege to watch. Thank you so much for sharing your story and doing it in such a beautiful way for us to really understand how storytelling can be done. It was really such a powerful experience to sort of witness this. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. We have a few questions, but would love for the audience to also share their questions in the chat, so that we can also, bring those questions here as well. In the film, Rebecca shares that we come to know the place we are now, and we can have a new story. Is it an origin story? No, but it's a new story for this place. Love to get a sense of what does this new story look like to you, for your people, and for Tart Creek.
Thank you very much. I do really believe that, and the coolest thing ever is Lauren thinks of me as an elder, and I'm going to quote an elder of mine. And she reminded me that we didn't always have the traditions that we had. We had to create them. We had to need them, and we had to develop them. We had to learn to cherish them. And I think that's when we start over. We're starting over here. And why not begin to right now figure out how we can use and enjoy this place safely. And that would be the story for now. And then we build for the new story when it's clean again, when everything can be gathered and be used and enjoyed safely. but we've got some stages to go through, and this is the one. This is where we are.
Thank you for sharing, Rebecca. For both Lauren and Rebecca, would love to hear a little bit more about how does this story fit into your larger impact agenda, and what actions can the attendees to this movie screening also take to advance your work?
Do you want me to start, Rebecca? Yeah, so Rebecca's been doing this work for a long time. I feel like I kind of come in at a place where there are so many different projects that she has going on, and in the best way, I want to be able to think about how this film can be a most useful tool for her and her nonprofit agency. And so one of the things that we're working on is implementing the rights of nature for Tar Creek. And so I know Rebecca has been talking to city council officials and the mayor, and there's some changeover with those right now, and hoping that sometime soon we can get that enacted so that the city can have more responsibility to take action and to care for Tar Creek. And then I think one of the things that has been really helpful with other organizations that have screened the film is if there's any other people that you can think of that might be interested in hosting a screening, whether virtually or at their organization or a talk or anything like that. We never know like who knows who and who can bring those connections to us, but that has been really helpful. And that's kind of how we got introduced to the Moms Clean Air Force, which was shared in the chat. It's that article that came out today. It was like a friend of a friend, and they were interested in telling our story. And I think that those introductions and impacts can go a long way whenever we're trying to amplify the advocacy work that Rebecca is doing and trying to get this larger message out of no more Tar Creeks. And then lastly, we are doing educational storytelling workshops. We have a youth workshop coming up at the end of May. And so I've been working with someone else in the lead agency to develop what that's going to look like, and raising money to be able to work with people that can help us develop like questions and materials that can accompany the film, because the approach I took was, I feel like, more of an artistic approach and less of an educational approach. And I think that there are some interesting discussions that can be had around this, especially when it comes to youth. And I'm not necessarily an educator myself, so that's something that we're definitely looking to develop so that we can have these conversations in schools and be able to have an impact on the youth. I know that one of the things that Rebecca talks about is signing up for her newsletter, which is leadagency.org, to keep up with their work. And Rebecca, if there's anything else you want to share too, please do.
Right, thank you. Yeah, you've done an excellent job of elevating our story. But one of the stories that we didn't even touch on in the film is the connection that we have with Climigration, and that is the fact that our Fort Tar Creek floods this town, and poisons. The poison goes farther each time. And so the work that we've been doing with Climigration, American Rivers, and several other organizations is just really widening the circle of how and which nonprofit organizations and other entities might help us figure out how we stop our flooding. And just like Jess, I think was you that mentioned climate change earlier. Most of our flooding, we have discovered, has been caused. Yes, it's man-made flooding, but it isn't climate change. It is the way that the hydro dam that all of our waters feed into is operated. And so that's the whole other story. And how do we make that different? And how do we put the pressure on federal entities and agencies to want to do better and to be protective when they can be? And so I think that's that when Lauren, when you say we had other projects, well, that certainly is one. and that is, how do we protect us from this precious creek that can harm us and spread those heavy metals in every park and playground, football field, and swimming pools that it gathers in and leaves those toxins behind. The other connection with the Mom's Clean Air Force is really the other issue, and that is the air we breathe, and the fact that our toxins were used as building material and put beneath homes, and then in heating and air conditioning units running through them, and really deteriorating, and that stuff is blowing through houses. We know that's happening, so that's another source and a whole nother story that maybe Lauren's next film will be. When we start looking at what else is out there, and how else are we harmed, and how else can we learn to tell the stories that protect us later.
Thank you so much, Lauren and Rebecca. At this point, we'd love to open it up to the audience to see if there's any questions that the audience may have. Maggie, should we just let folks come off mute if they have questions?
Of course.
And it doesn't have to be a question, it could also be a reflection.
Jess, yes.
Thank you, ﷺ. That was so powerful. I loved the different levels of age is the word that's coming to my mind right now. Just seeing babies, infancy, partnership, love, and also just elders embraced in this river of life. So that was incredible. I have a question about what you really just mentioned, Rebecca. I'm curious about this kind of paradox of being water people, water beings, intimately connected with water, land, earth, fire, all of these elemental necessities. On the one hand, loving and being a part of that, and also paradoxically needing to be protected from and have this kind of awareness of the dangers of poisonous water, flooding water, a lack of water. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that paradoxical relationship that you experienced that maybe you think we might need to be prepared for in the future, anything like that. ﷺ.
Well, I'll tell you, is our organization joined the Waterkeeper Alliance decades ago, and we did that because we thought those are water people. They're gonna be allies, and they have been as much as they can be. And so we started with Grand River Keeper because all of our stuff goes into the Grand River and ends up in the lake that ends up flooding us. So we thought, well, we'll start there. And then we added a second program, which is the Tar Creek Keeper program. And I took that role on. It's a very hard role because I can't say, y'all come on down. And I long to do and say the name of this film. I'd like to say, meet me at the creek. I would love that to be my job. Rather than meet me at the creek so we can get people out of it. Meet me at the creek so we can take the dams down that kids are building. Meet me at the creek to put up the warning signs. All of the duties that I have there is as a protector of people right now, to keep them safe from that water. I don't believe it will always be that way. So with some funding through the Ms. Foundation, we bought a fleet of, a small fleet very small fleet of kayaks, so we can go out in the water, so we can train people that you can like water. You really can like it. It's a good thing. You want to be in it. You want to be able to like it. You want to love water, so you will want to protect it. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for that, Jess. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and kind of through this work in this film that I've stumbled into as I do in my life. Rebecca and I were invited to talk at the Hollywood Climate Summit in LA, which is happening in June for anybody who's interested. And the panel, this was last year, the panel was about intergenerational storytelling in the climate space. And this was before the film was completed. But one of the things that I've been seeing, especially after the film has come out, is there's a lot of intersections of important topics that the film explores and that I want to continue exploring with, especially with representation. So obviously there's this this line of wanting to protect the place that we're from and creating this new story for the place that we're at. And then also centering a person that is an elder. And the USC Annenberg Foundation has done a lot of research on the lack of representation, especially from people 65 and older. And it's like quite shocking, actually. And also Indigenous representation in media. And that's also very shocking as well. And I think that whenever we want to reach back into youth storytelling workshops or just talking to the youth and talking to people about this film and other films and why it's important to tell our own stories, is that we need to make sure that we're centering these voices in order to diversify the experiences and also just create more representation for our communities that is encompassing of everyone in it, rather than just like the few people that, you know, are in the certain age group on screen. And I think that, you know, one of the things that is really important to me is just making sure that we're, you know, being as authentic as possible. And one of the things that Rebecca and I, you know, worked on with this film was, yeah, I sent her some cuts and making sure that, you know, everything was good on her end. But also, you know, in the beginning, someone mentioned Rebecca's writings in the chat on the website. She has a blog. She has some beautiful blog posts on there. But that was one of the things that had inspired the film as well, this like poetic nature and the way that she writes and talks about this place. I originally had her write, you know, what would this place look like if it was clean? And she wrote something out for me, and we ended up recording it. And then when I got into the editing room, I was like, it just wasn't working the way that I thought it would. And not because of anything that Rebecca had done. It was just more like, this wasn't the full story. Like, I think that there's deeper things that we could tap into here, that there's like elements of it. But I think that the more like intimate moments that Rebecca and I were able to cultivate by spending more time together is what really brought out those underlying storylines into the film. And so, yeah, I guess I just want to encourage anyone, all of you doing, you know, the work that you're doing in your communities, that storytelling, not only in a film capacity, but in any sort of art capacity from diverse age groups and backgrounds, is extremely important. And we definitely need more of it.
We'd love to have more questions from the audience. Otherwise, we have a few of our own that we can absolutely to share with Rebecca and Lauren as well.
I'm seeing a question in the chat from Deborah.
Great, thank you, Maggie. So Deborah's asking, if we started today, how long would it take for her to heal?
If everything worked, I think it wouldn't take that long. But when you're working at the pace they're working, it'll be another 50 years. But if they picked up the pace, they could do it quicker. It can be done.
And my understanding with that is a lot of the organizations, governmental organizations that have the power to be able to implement a full cleanup don't communicate very well with each other. The resources aren't being delegated into the right places. And so sometimes there are instances where we're actually like moving a little bit backward as well. And so I think, recently Rebecca has been meeting with the EPA and some other folks to talk about what some of the things are that need to be done. Even though they think that they have been doing stuff, it's just hasn't been as, quick as we would like.
Right, thank you, Rebecca and Lauren. We have a couple questions on our end, unless there's others that have questions here. One thing, oh, sorry, Rachel, go ahead. Yes, please.
Well, I would love to pick up on what Lauren was just describing and a bit of what ģszáģa said in the chat about focusing on joy. The word I was reflecting on as I was watching was like the deep focus on hope. And would love to understand how you see art as an advocacy tool and what decision making you used to reflect less on the what happened and the state of picture and the state of the Tar Creek, and more on that vision of hope and what that could do for the conversations that you all are having with EPA or others.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I mean, looking back on everything in the path that, since I met Rebecca, what inspired it probably was Rebecca's work that she does with youth in the community, that they make art. They have her office that she's in right now has art all over the place. It's just decked out. And, one of the things that I like to say is that art is cultural survival. Like if we are not creating, we're not going to be able to move our culture forward. And so when I was thinking about this film and also just my work in the climate space, I just feel very like discouraged a lot. It feels overwhelming. And I wanted people watching this film to not feel that way and to also feel, like you said, like very hopeful for what could be done. And for some of my references, so I worked with a really amazing composer. His name is ģszáģa Ꭴżył, but he and I kind of sat down after I had put a lot of the visuals together and talked about some of the feelings that I wanted to evoke in this film. And one of them was like longing for a place, kind of like yeah, maybe not grief fully, but yeah, just like longing and this like wanting and like a deep love that you like didn't really know that you wanted or needed. And then also kind of bringing in like magical realism elements to it, because even though it's not like sci-fi, it's still like these scenes don't really exist, what we're seeing in Tar Creek essentially. So there was little like vignettes that we were calling them, where we brought in a film camera, and we had the one where like Rebecca's eyes are like this close to the camera. We changed the music during those specific vignettes to have a little bit more of like a magical realism feel and sound to it. And I think that helps the viewer tap into that feeling that you're talking about, the hope, like the magical realism. And then, the place, I had watched some previous films that have been done about Tar Creek, and they just left me feeling very sad. And I just only wanted to briefly touch on it so that the viewer kind of had an idea of what we were up against. But it doesn't need to be the full story. And it's definitely not the full story. And the work that Rebecca's doing and other people in the community is more of what I would like to uplift. And Indigenous joy is something that we don't see very much on screen. We're often put in these stereotypical, either historical or invisible places in media. And so I really wanted to actively combat that with this film.
And she did it. Uh-huh. That was I so many people have come up and they just see what's wrong and never that we could have something different. And so she really brought I think the best gift we could have here is to show that and personally the gift she gave me was to take me to that creek that we played in. It's not that far away, and it's a treasure, absolute treasure, to see water that clear, so beautiful and safe, and protected by the people that are upstream and downstream of it, and born to take care of it. So we didn't have that choice on this creek. It was industry and extraction and winning wars that spurred on the really raping the land so deeply that it will bleed for generations unless there's some intervention. But there can be intervention, and we have to push for it.
Rebecca, that dovetails really nicely into Johnson's question. He's asking you, would you mind sharing a few thoughts on hope and faith and perseverance and how to prevent despair?
Yes. I think every day you just get up and you just start over like it's brand new. And if you dwell on the fact that we still have most of the yards in this town have not even been checked for lead. So we have no idea how many people are planting gardens that are dangerous for everything that they grow. But you just start over and you hand out another card that says this is who you call, so you can get your checked. I mean, it's every day imagining that we'll answer the phone here and talk to a mother that's just found out her child is lead poisoned, and what can we do about it? And so we try to figure out, well, what could we do about it? So we'll learn how to check for lead poisoning, and we'll learn how to do this, and we'll learn. So we'll keep learning, and we'll keep educating others to how do we do what we have to do here while it's as poisoned as it is. So we just reach back to somebody else that's given up and say, well, I haven't heard from you in a while. Why don't you come back over? Let's start again. And Johnson, that's what we have to do, especially here in Oklahoma, when it's I mean, they even have extraction on their flag. It's like they brag about it. And so we have to start over every single day. Yeah.
I want to answer Brittany's question real quick before we have our closing remarks. Brittany asked about.
No. Let me introduce Brittany.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Brittany Cordova is an outstanding journalist, and she likes tallgrass prairies, and she likes beavers, and she's come out and she's seen my property, and we've gone exploring together, and she wrote stories about it. So there she goes.
Amazing. So you know the magic of Rebecca in her place. I love that. And the inspiration for the narrative love story, love scenes in the film. I guess I'm just kind of a sucker for like a love, like just feeling loved. Like I'm like a love of like tell me all the affirmations, like and so this couple that I know and I work with on other shows, they were just super cute in Reservation Dogs on the 70s episode, and I reached out to them and to ask if they wanted to be involved, and they're now engaged, and I just couldn't like write it any better. I just wanted to kind of interlink all of these moments of the love story, the families, the baby with the place. It's all connected. And I think that if we can have all of those good feelings of love, we can also have good feelings for place. And I'm definitely wanting to write more love stories in a narrative sense. So maybe you'll see something in the future.
I'll tell you, I'm working on the love stories at Tar Creek. I got a whole bunch of them.
Wonderful. Should we, I think we're hopefully wrapping up for today. I'll pass it off to Arti for the closing.
Sure. Rebecca and Lauren, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all that you did. And I have a lot of thoughts in closing reflection, and I'm going to put mine in the chat, and I invite everyone else here to put any closing reflections, thoughts, feedback, anything you'd like to add in, please put it in the chat. And Rebecca and Lauren, I'd invite you both to share any closing thoughts you have with the group.
Rebecca, you first.
Thank you. I would just say, please listen to the people around you, ask them questions, talk about their hopes, talk about the place they are, ask about it, ask and talk and visit and listen. We all have a story, and I hope you'll share yours.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having us. And, you know, I really believe that the stories that we tell and the things that we create have a spirit. And I think that this film has essences and pieces of Rebecca's spirit and Tar Creek spirit in it. And I just want to encourage everyone to go and tell your own stories and make your art, because it does have an impact, even if you don't know what that impact is. And thank you again for having us.
And I also want to thank everyone who helped to support this conversation today. I love that it ended on love. I love that there was so much love shared just among people as they were reflecting and listening to Lauren and Rebecca. Thank you so much to Arti and Farhana for facilitating the conversation as well. And to everyone who shared a reflection or a question, just real gratitude. We do want to let people know that if they're interested in more experiences like this, the Learning, Programming, and Events members will be supporting a co-learning module on how to prepare to be better partners with Indigenous, tribal, and Native peoples. And that'll be on June 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific. And we'll send out more information in our newsletter that comes out via Google Groups on a regular basis. And Maggie might be able to also put the sign up in the chat for that. But just immense gratitude, such a beautiful experience. The word rejuvenating is what's coming to mind for me as my reflection. Just a lot of very powerful, positive messages in the face of a lot of challenges. So thank you, everyone, from all of us here at the Climigration Network. And I hope you have a wonderful, peaceful rest of your day. Take care.